Hello and welcome to this video tutorial from Computergaga.com, and in this video we are going to look at how to unpivot data using Excel's Power Query. So we are going to transform a data set that looks like this table on the left into one like this table on the right. So the unpivot columns feature of Power Query really comes to our assistance when we are trying to transform data that we receive into a way that makes sense to Excel and allows us to analyze it further. So very common when we're downloading or importing data from other sources to receive a table such as this, which looks nice but is not very helpful to us. If we can get it into a tabular manner like this, with a column of cities as opposed to having them as headers, and then the values in a column like this, we can do further analysis using all our Excel techniques. So let's see this in action. So here we have our range of cells to start with. Now this is not formatted as a table yet, and often when you import or download data, it will come into Excel as a table to start with. But that's not important. It's encouraged and advised to put it in tables, but it's not necessary. So keeping with this range of cells, if I click amongst the range, I click on my Data tab and click on From Table Range. I'm using Excel 2016 with Office 365 here, so depending on your Excel version and the time that you view this video, the steps may be a little different. When I click on From Table Range though, it will start to put that range into a table. So because my data was not in a table to start with, it starts to format it as one, prompts me for my range and whether there are headers in the first row, of which there is, so I will click on OK. So here is my table in the Power Query editor. You can see how it's brought it across with my 4 city columns, and I have some null values for where there were some blank cells in that range, where there have not been some cells. I want to start by naming the query on the right hand side here. I always think that's a good place to start. You've got to give it a meaningful name. So I will call it sales. And then we're going to unpivot these 4 city columns. So I will click on the first one, Boston, hold down my Shift key and then click on the last one, Paris, so that it selects those 4. I will then click on the Transform tab, where you can see the Unpivot Columns option about a third of the way along. Now interestingly, as you move your mouse onto the Unpivot Columns button, and you see it bring up that little tooltip to explain what it does, we can see how it explains that it will translate all but the currently unselected columns. So although I've selected Boston to Paris, really it's focusing on what I didn't select. Now this is really useful because if we expand and start selling in other cities, this unpivot feature will continue to work. I want to be aware though, I want to make you aware that the drop down arrow next to the unpivot columns option, we have the unpivot or the unselected, everything apart from the unselected columns. You can specify to unpivot only those selected columns. Now this is quite a rare technique, but I can be that specific and say only the Boston, Tokyo, London and Paris columns, just them, in which case it will not cater for other cities in the future. Okay, I'm going to choose Unpivot Columns from that option. Let me click on that. and it performs the unpivot. So it creates this column called attribute. I see I've got 20 rows here because I had 4 cities and 6 products, which is 24, but 4 of them had null values. 4 of them were blank, leaving me with 20. So let me double click on this attribute column so I can rename it as city. Then I'll double click on this value column so I can rename that as number of sales. And you can see the steps, the applied steps on the right hand side from the original source, changing types. There's the unpivot and then the renaming of columns. And as simple as that, we have converted something that Excel was not happy with. It looked beautiful, but it wasn't very helpful. And we've transformed it into something that is. I can now click on my Home tab and close and load this to the workbook into a table for further analysis. My transformed table is added to a worksheet, and you can see at the top it already has the table name of sales, which I gave it in the Power Query editor. On the right hand side you can see my query has loaded the 20 rows. Now let's look at it being updated, because one of the great things about using Power Query for the transformations is that we can refresh it in the future. We can simply update it in the click of a button. So let me go back to sheet 1 where I have that original table. It is now formatted as a table as part of that process. Let me change a value. So maybe Boston product A, if I change it from 109 to 200. And if I go back to my other sheet, right mouse click and refresh, we will see that 109 for product A in Boston has changed to 200. Now let's look at another example. If I go back to the other table again, and I will add a new city. Let's imagine we have Chicago, and we didn't sell any product A, but we did sell 300 of product B and 59 of product D. Now that is all. So we've got 2 more sales in a new city. Let's go over to the other sheet, right mouse click and refresh, and they are added in. So there's Chicago for product B, 300, and there is Chicago for product D, 59. So we can transform that data from that source in a table on the sheet, but then the real brilliance is how simple it is to update it again in the future. I hope you found this video useful. Please check out some of our other videos on our YouTube channel, and come check us out at Computergaga.com.